Starting with, after months of rumors and unconfirmed indications that TNA would be airing on Spike TV this fall as soon as WWE moves programming to USA, it became official. Beginning in October, a 1-hour TNA program will be launched as part of Slammin' Saturday Nights, their weekly block of programming that will include the UFC and was touted to include Howard Stern, but did not end up including Stern, and in the end, he ended up going elsewhere.
Damn.
TNA's going to Spike. I know it's a big surprise. It wasn't at all.
So I thought you were wanting my opinions on the Howard Stern program, not coming with it.
Sure, but how would you have felt? Again, this is the weird. I think it's like the 4th different time Howard Stern has like crossed over with TNA in some regard so far.
Yeah. Was Howard Stern still like giant in 2005?
Pretty much. I think he was maybe like he's approaching peak of his powers at this stage, I would have said.
Interesting.
I was never a Stern guy. I was never a Stern listener. I know JB is like the big Stern guy in TNA, and that's how I remember when they wanted to book Beetlejuice versus, is his name Beetlejuice? Yep. Yeah. Against Puppet. They wanted to do that match, but that never came through. And they potentially would have been in the same block of programming here, except that didn't come through either. He's launching his own VOD service, I think, in the end.
God, ahead of the curve.
Yeah, in 2005, launching his own Howard Stern VODs.
The Howard Stern Network.
So instead, it's just a block of UFC and TNA, including Ultimate Fighter.
Yeah, that'll work out for them, so sure.
I know, like, it's not something we'll get super into, but I know it was like a thing happening in the background in that there was like a basic war going on between Spike and WWE in the last months. As like WWE announced they're going back to USA, and then for like the last like 2 or 3 months, and particularly the last few weeks, like there was a bunch of passive aggressive bullshit between Spike and WWE, or like that relationship did not end on good terms.
No, historically, that's one of like that's like really the only time that's happened to them too. Yeah. Normally they're pretty like they've stuck to USA for most of Raw, so they haven't had to worry about that. And the SmackDown jumps have been like from, one network to Fox or something. So again, they've done it in like a way that was applicable to everyone's circumstances.
Yeah, and usually like, networks are very conservative, risk-averse things. They don't want to push the boat out. They don't want to declare war on one of their properties. But I was listening to Deadlock, who were covering the TNA Spike first episode. Not that any other podcast should be allowed to cover TNA. That's ours.
It's fucked up. Brian Alvarez.
Yeah, fuck you, Brian. Thinking
fuck you guys.
We are the first people to have a beef with Brian Alvarez on the internet this month.
Yeah. You know what? CM Punk was right. I'll say it.
But they were talking about how Spike would run commercials during Raw for the UFC, being like, enough of that fake bullshit. You can watch the real stuff in the UFC.
That rules.
And like the last Raw, there was the whole thing where Vince was trying to get in plugs for USA, and they'd put up like bars and tone and cut off any mention of USA. Spike would be editing him and censoring him in the middle of the broadcast on a live show. All that bullshit between Spike and WWE. I bring it up because I do wonder if part of that is what pushed Spike toward TNA.
I'm sure that's maybe not the whole thing, but there's probably a bit of it that like we also have a wrestling show as well. Fuck you.
Yeah, there's a little bit of spite, a little bit of pettiness. It's like, fine, we'll take on and we'll put them in the fucking Velocity time slot. Right there, the week after you're gone, TNA will be there. Fuck you. We're helping your competition.
Wrestling is an industry that runs on pettiness, and I'm glad that it's now back at the forefront.
Yeah, we are fueled by pettiness in wrestling right now. It is the driving force of everything. It's
perfect. It's how it's meant to be.
We have a Dixie Carter quote, Liam.
It's very short. Don't know why. We are thrilled to be coming to Spark TV,
said TNA President Dixie Carter. This is a real test of your voice after your
yeah, I know. That's why I was like, this didn't come out the way I expected it to. We look forward to bringing our exciting style of total non-stop action and entertainment to male viewers.
Not the women, by the way. She doesn't give a fuck about bringing it to the female viewers.
TNA is for the boys, it's for the fellas.
Once TNA's agreement with Spike TV Dare Impact beginning in October was finalized, Dixie Carter announced the television deal to TNA employees during a conference call on the morning of July 21st. The announcement came 2 days after the Impact taping in Orlando, where no announcement was made to staff and wrestlers at Sunday's pay-per-view, which would have been the last show, whatever the hell one that was. No Surrender. Dixie Carter attended, but she was unable to give any announcement because the deal was not done. So she had to do that weird thing. It's like, listen, it's coming soon, guys. It's not done, so I can't say anything. And then 2 days later, it's like, no, it's done. We can say it now. The first edition of TNA Impact on Spike TV will air on Saturday, October 1st. TNA will tape matches and promos for October 1st and October 8th on Tuesday, September 27th, setting that taping cadence going forward of taping 2 Impacts at a time. As was the case when TNA aired programming on Fox Sports Net from June to June in the last year, TNA will tape television every other Tuesday, although still under consideration and not definite. TNA will be exploring the possibility of going live on Saturday nights, depending on how well TNA does on Spike TV during the initial debut, and whether TNA can secure talent that normally take indie dates on Saturday nights. TNA President Dixie Carter, Jeff Jarrett, and graphics producer David Zahadi met with Spike TV officials. The discussion at Spike headquarters in New York centered around production, marketing, and the overall feel of the TNA product when it debuts on Spike in October. Kevin Sullivan, not that Kevin Sullivan, who worked with David Zahadi in WWE, was hired by TNA to assist Zahadi in the graphics department. That Kevin Sullivan is actually still, he's head of post-production for AEW now as well. The latest indications regarding the TNA Spike deal is that Spike is going to be in charge of selling the ad time in the show. That makes more sense than TNA having to sell that ad time, since TNA staff doesn't have those kind of advertising connections, the same ones that Spike would have. And also Spike will be selling TNA as part of a block, the Slam and Saturday Night block, along with UFC, which means they aren't buying into wrestling per se, but a block of like edgy male orientated programming.
Damn, Spike might be good at this stuff.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, it's like it mitigates the risk of bringing TNA into the fold, that you are selling it as part of a package with UFC, therefore like you are taking the risk off that, you know, even if TNA flops, people will still buy those hours for UFC.
Like, there's a level of knowing what they're doing here with Spike that we just haven't seen in all of TNA's history up until this point. Like, this is a company that actually knows how to run what it does.
Yeah, they're like, this is a male-orientated channel. We are going to put the wrestling audience after the UFC audience because there's undeniably crossover, and we think TNA can be a lead-in. And even, like, again, putting it right in the Velocity slot. Like, literally the week after Velocity goes off the air, Impact's there instead. So anybody with the muscle memory of watching Velocity will tune in and they'll see Impact. So you'll get some of those WWE viewers who, like, you know, the kind of people who aren't reading the news and don't see that, oh, Velocity's moving somewhere else, and they might not see it because Spike tried not to let them say it on their television show. So they might tune in on that October 1st show to see Velocity and say, hey, wait, this is a new wrestling show I've never seen before. Look at that six-sided ring.
Whoa, I want to see my Shane Helms versus local enhancement guy match. What the fuck?
Who's this? Oh, I remember AJ Styles once wrestled Shane Helms on one of these shows. Therefore, I'm going to watch this.
I'm a giant Velocity head, so I guy who's only seen Velocity. This TNA Impact show reminds me a lot of Velocity.
Yeah, he only knows AJ is the dude. I think that match was on Velocity too, wasn't it? Maybe it was Metal.
I think AJ's WWE stuff was Velocity.
Because he did wrestle Helms on one of them.
He wrestled him on Metal and Jacked.
Oh, both of them. Whoa.
But not Velocity. Wait, okay, these are both credited as being January 26, 2002.
So is it Metal or Jacked? It's a very important question.
Alright, well, Monsoon Classic has it listed as Metal, but WWE has it listed as Jacked.
I trust Monsoon Classic with this more than I trust WWE.
I honestly 100% do. Okay, Monsoon Classic has the entrance, which will have the lower third. Well, listen, this is certainly Metal. This is WWF Metal, so...
Learn your own product, WWE.
So I don't know what to tell you.
WWE is dumb and wrong as usual.
Seeing, like, AJ wrestle this version of Hurricane is so weird.
It's a good match. Hurricane gives him more than he ever deserves.
But, like, Hurricane is, like, full, like, Attitude Era look Hurricane still. So weird. Anyway, Spike TV.
With TNA programming moving to Spike TV, management is telling wrestlers that they will be able to make in the range of $25,000 to $50,000 per year. There are exceptions where some top names will make more. TNA's base salary would represent 1/2 to 1/3 of the potential money a wrestler could earn during any given year. TNA management has told wrestlers that they will be able to command higher booking fees from independent promoters because of the national television exposure, so don't expect huge pay rises or salaries. What a load of fucking bullshit.
You know what I appreciate? 2005 was still an era where they would lie about it to try and make you feel better.
Yeah.
2023, they're just like, fuck you. What are you going to do about it? Go somewhere else?
They're like, listen, guys, you can charge more for your indie dates because you're national TV stars now. And you're national TV stars and we should pay you? No, come on. Don't be crazy.
No, that's insane. You're being insane. We're just gaslighting the wrestlers.
And like, listen, they do end up making, because Spike goes well, so they end up making money. But here they're like, oh, what if it doesn't? So we're not going to give you money for a while. Apparently, like, Spike taking over selling of the ad time must have been a fairly late development, according to Dave, because TNA were talking with Howard Brody, former NWA president and co-author of Dusty Rhodes' autobiography, which was promoted on this show. Not our show, TNA. But also, I guess we technically promoted it on our show because we mentioned it was promoted on TNA.
I'm doing it right now.
Apparently, they were talking to him about bringing him on board to sell the ads, but then Spike took over that. TNA gets 2 minutes of ad time to promote its pay-per-views and other merchandise. TNA pays all the production costs, which I do think actually changes by the time they get to the actual TV show, and then Spike gets all the ad revenue. But I do think that changes. I think Spike starts covering production.
Spike were like, holy shit, people bought the block.
Yeah, it's like, this thing makes money. It is like, we'll get to it in October. It is like insane how quickly TNA is a success on Spike. Like, it hit the ground running, it does really well and grows and grows and grows until it doesn't anymore. But
until they do something.
It was one of those things where it was like a real home run win, like right out of the gate. It's like, oh, this is working.
The Spike TV run is like the best thing that ever happened to this company.
Well, yes.
Like, significantly. Like, we're entering, like, this is the best thing that they ever managed to do.
If you were to say, like, what is the single thing that was most important to the success of TNA for all of its potential not successes, but like the single most important thing was getting on Spike TV. It's the single most important thing to ever happen to the company.
And staying there for like a significant portion of time.
Yeah.
Probably still would be there if someone didn't fucking Russo it up.
There were Spike representatives at the pay-per-view, which is one of the reasons it was announced so strongly. This is at Sacrifice, by the way, because they announced it on the pre-show. That's the first time they mentioned it on air. I think they did put out the press release before that, but the first time they mentioned it on air, Mike Tenay in the ring with Larry Z being like, we're coming to Spike TV!
So there was a dude in the crowd with like a Spike TV shirt, so...
Yeah, they all knew. And also, it played backwards on No Surrender. But apparently the officials there loved the show and started asking if they could get rematches on TV.
Okay.
They want their Jerry Lynn Shawn Waltman match on TV.
Yeah, they're like, that ruled. Can we run it back, please? Hey, guys, we really loved Abyss and Lance Hoyt. Could you just run that back?
I think they do run back Abyss and Lance Hoyt, so maybe that was the match.
Yeah. Shoutouts to the Spike execs. They know what's up.
Samoa Joe received rave reviews from colleagues and members of management after his pay-per-view match against Chris Sabin. He lived up to his reputation and showed a lot of people what the hype about him was all about.
Yep.
So they finally get it.
I'm glad that like it took that for them to get it, but yeah, it's Samoa Joe. He's the greatest. That match rules. That Chris Sabin match fucking owns.
Yeah, Chris Sabin rules. Samoa Joe rules. Samoa Joe's the best wrestler in the world at this stage.
Yeah. I wonder what the Spike TV execs thought of Samoa Joe.
I don't know, because they would have seen him wrestling AJ Styles. So I think they probably would have had a pretty good impression of him coming out of Sacrifice.
If I'm Spike TV, I'm like, this is a marketable guy.
It will be a talking point when we get to it. Joe's not prominently featured in like the first month.
I will murder someone.